Right, and for the last talk of the afternoon, I'd like to introduce Brian, GHGQS, who's going to talk to us about the MCR21 restoration. But he is also our treasurer, and I'd also like to thank him publicly for the work he does on that, which is backroom stuff, but very, very important. Over to you, Brian, to talk about MCR21. No audio, Brian. You're still muted. Try now.
Yep, that's better. Are you seeing my full frame screen?
Yes, off you go.
Right. I'm in my presentation. No, I don't think you are.
No, you need to share screen.
Share screen, share screen. Yes, I think that's got it. Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. The BATC has a long history in outside broadcasts. It goes back to Matilda in the 50s, Joe Rose's Monoculus, MCR21 in its various guises, Paul Marshall's Southern, Tony's Blue Van recently. But today I'm going to talk about our restoration of the BBC's MCR21 and its place in history. And why hasn't the next slide come up? Oh, joy. Help.
Brian, you need to use page down, not the mouse, and then it'll work.
That was page down. Page up, page down. Ah, right. I seem to be at the end of the slide rather than the beginning. Oh dear. Right, that's the beginning. Joy. Sorry about that, chaps. So MCR21 was built in 1963, and that's much nearer the start of television than it is to the present day. Here's MCR23 when it was new, outside a famous football ground. Apart from the age, one of the interesting things about this that I find interesting is it's parked on grass. There's precious little grass there now. So a good place to start is the start of the BBC's high definition 405 line service in 1936. And we'll all recognise this place. The recent photograph showing the tower being repurposed for cell phones and various other functions, and the now decrepit and sadly unrestored BBC studios. So going back a little earlier still to perhaps what was the very first outside broadcast, which was done by Baird. He installed his 30-line scanner in a caravan and televised the derby. Here it is. Now, if you think about the mechanical scanner of its whirling discs, it didn't like moving. In fact, moving it, pan, and it would disintegrate with the forces. So in order to follow the action, they installed a mirror conveniently on the caravan door, which they were able to move to follow the horses as they moved past. Now, once the BBC was up and running, it became immediately obvious that having an outside broadcast vehicle was a very good thing, enabling them to cover minor events like the coronation of King George VI. And MCR2 followed in 1938. Then this is MCR1, and basically what they did was they took the equipment that was used in the studios and put an identical set into a vehicle. It worked, but it wasn't exactly comfortable. Then the war came along and there was a bit of a pause whilst all this was going on. But once the BBC was back up and running, it ordered more outside broadcast vehicles, and MCR4 was the first one to arrive in time for the 1948 Olympics, with MCR3 following in the next year. This is MCR4, and unlike its predecessors, it's a semi-trailer. It does have the advantage that you can move the tractor unit away for convenience in parking, or perhaps for repair to use a different tractor unit if there's some problem with its engine. Now, the BBC required more outside broadcast vehicles for the regions and other areas, and during the period 1950 to 1960, they built MCRs 6 to 18, each one being a small improvement over its predecessors. Then we get to MCR21, which we're going to return to, but I want to continue with this timeline. And in 1967, the first colour scanner arrived. And here's a picture of it. It's based its layout on the very successful MCR21 series. It's a transverse vehicle with the people sitting across the vehicle. The sound mix was virtually the same as the one in 21, and the vision mixer was the same as the one in 21. So that was the start of the colour series with CMCR 1 and CMCR 2 and 3. This was a Type 1 vehicle, and it was succeeded by the Type 2s, the Type 4s, the Type 5s, the Type 6s, the Type 7s, and finally the Type 8s during the period 1970 to the early 1990s. Now, this is a Type 8. By the time this was designed, they were packing an awful lot into an outside broadcast vehicle. It's the maximum legal size for a rigid vehicle. And at the rear is the sound control room. In the middle is the production control room. And this had the novel arrangement of slide out sides. The monitor stack slid out to give you an extra foot or so inside, and the production wall here slid out to give you another couple of feet. Next is the vision control area. This vehicle was capable of 16 cameras normally, but there was an extra area at the front here, a facilities area, where you can have video recorders, graphics, or more cameras. Typically, it wasn't uncommon to have 20 cameras, which was really going it. This vehicle was very successful, and the last one, LO2, retired from service, I think, in the 2010s. It went through numerous upgrades. It started life as a PAL vehicle, then it went to widescreen, then it went to digital, and finally it was converted to HD. The BBC and latterly CIS had their money's worth out of that one. Now, there it is in blue livery. It went through different colours. It started in grey and then went to blue and then it went to white as part of the marketing exercise. But during this period, the size and power of OB vans continued to grow and culminating in triple expanders with 20 plus cameras. Here is CIS's OB1. Now this is a triple expander. It's also a articulated vehicle. There was a return to articulated vehicles rather than rigid because it gave you a bit more flexibility over the chassis and how they could expand. So the offside here expands and the near side you can just see it's a double expansion. So this thing was absolutely enormous inside. It had a vision control area, and in the triple expanded side here, there were 3 edit suites. In the production control room, there was the main vision mixer and a secondary vision mixer. And in the sound control room, it again was split with a main sound mixer and a second sound mixer. The upshot of this was that you could actually do 2 simultaneous and independent programs at the same time. Well, this is the main production area with a huge number of screens. There are 31 Apple screens there. Most of them could be quad splitted to display 4 pictures on each screen, giving you 100 plus pictures. The vision mixer in the center here had 64 inputs, and well complicated. Anyway, this brings us back to our project, MCR21, which is currently away at the bodybuilders having a paint job. Hopefully we shall get it back soon and then we'll be able to continue with the interior refit. And we hope to take it back to its original condition in 1963 with the correct 1963 sound mixer and vision mixer and just 7 picture monitors, which is quite a change from the 100 odd pictures which could be displayed in CIS's OB1. The camera, the Pi Mark 6 camera, was a hybrid camera. It used valves for the hard bit and transistors for the easy bit. It used the newly developed 4.5-inch image orphan tube, which was widely acknowledged to be the best producer of pictures of the time, superseded only by the Plumbicum, which would arrive shortly afterwards and find wide use in colour cameras. Now, looking at my watch, there's about a minute left. I can see Dave nodding. So that really brings us to the end of this short talk. And I suppose if there are any questions, I will endeavour to avoid them. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Brian. It is good to see the full spectrum of what the BATC is up to and some of the older kit there. Some questions we have. Why are MCRs called scanners?
Yes. Now, this is a good one. It goes back, we think, to the very first outside broadcaster with Baird's Caravan. Now, he didn't call his camera a camera, he called it a scanner because it scanned the picture. And we rather think this term stuck. A lot of the people who worked for Baird in 31 ended up working for the BBC in 37. And we think that they brought the word with them. because scanner is a lot easier to say than mobile control room.
Right.
And it stuck. You could also argue that the Emitron cameras, which were being used at the time, were quite simple beasts. There were only 3 valves, I think, in the head. All the scanning came up the camera cable from the scanner.
Ah, I see. Okay, thank you.
Possibly.
The
But
other,
there is a lot of discussion about this, but that's my view.
okay, the only other question we've got is that I hope one day you will broadcast from MCR21 to QO100, and I'm sure we're going to try and make that happen.
That's a
So,
good scheme. Does QR100 cope with 405 lines?
It'll cope with anything. Yes, of course it does. Right. Thank you very much, Brian. We will rush on, but it was really good to have the project update there. Okay.
Jolly good.
Cheers,
7
Brian.
please.
Bye.